I don't go to the gym because of I want to be in better shape. I go to the gym because it's going to strengthen my character. Because at the end of the day, if I can ensure that I'm building my character to who I want it to be, then everything else is a side effect.
Yeah. Yeah, man, Chris, I appreciate you coming along. You know, how long have we met each other around now?
It's a couple of years now.
I think so, yeah. You've been in Bali for how long?
Well, I first moved to Bali 9 and a bit years ago.
Yeah.
So it was from Sydney, then lived in Dubai for 2 years, and then we moved to Bali, and that was a bit over 9 years ago now. And then now we're mainly based in Australia, but actually still here.
And did you have kids back then when you were moving, or?
So, story in a nutshell was personal trainer in Sydney and building a great personal training business. And then I then found out that my wife was pregnant with our very first child. 3 days later, I had the opportunity come up of being able to move to Dubai to start a fitness business. And at that time, I was getting a bit burnt out from what I was doing, to be perfectly honest. Like I couldn't see the future. I didn't like the future that I saw laying out ahead of me. And I think so much of it as well was a case of I was 26 at the time, maybe.
Older now, by the way.
36 now.
36.
Okay. Yeah. So let's say I was 25 at the time.
Yeah.
And I had, bought my second place in Sydney. I was running this business. Like I felt like I ticked the boxes of success so far of like what I was supposed to be doing, like what culture and society was telling me to do.
Yeah.
And I just saw like this white picket fence life start unfolding in front of me. I was like, this isn't what I signed up for. Like, this isn't what I want at all.
Yeah.
And so I was feeling this uneasiness and this out of alignment happening. And so when I got this email that this colleague of mine gave me this opportunity, it was like, hey, I can move to Dubai to start this fitness business. My wife and I very quickly said, yeah, this is a great idea. So my wife was pregnant. So sold my house, sold my car, gave all my clients away.
Were you 25 or?
Yeah, 25. And
still young though with all that.
Well, yeah.
I mean,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so I was earning good money super young. Like I bought my first property when I was 21.
Yeah, wow.
And so then I kind of got to this stage, and then my wife was 6 months pregnant when I got on the plane to go to Dubai. So I had 3 months to get the personal training business up and running before flying back to be back home in time for my wife to give birth to our daughter. And so I slept on the couch for 3 months. I grounded as hard as I possibly could. Like I went hard building that business and made it happen, flew back in time for my wife to give birth to our eldest. And I'm the father of 4 daughters now.
Wow.
And so then we flew back to Dubai and then built that business. But then soon after I did the exact same thing. I burnt out doing the exact same problem that I was doing before. I just moved it from Sydney to Dubai.
Yeah.
And then that's when I first started the online fitness business. And that's when I was like, I see the potential. Like I wanted to earn more money. I wanted to help more people. Like I wanted to be more expansive. And being in what I call now the time for money trap, there was just so many problems with that business model. And so my wife and I decided, we packed up everything, sold everything in Dubai, came here to Bali. We thought we were only going to come here for 1 year as well. And so
everybody
after that, mate, been here for a while now.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, I think that's a good angle to kind of like start with, because I think a lot of men in general can relate to, their whatever they're going to university to get a degree, to get into a job, they work in a corporation, and then they feel the same feeling you feel. Like there's not really any like next step to this. Like, I can become the manager, I can become, this is the cap. So what do you like? If you're going back to like whatever that is, 20, 25 years old, what's happening from you burning out there? Then you like, okay, I'm going to Dubai now doing this, but I'm burning out there as well. Like, what do you see as the trap and the mindset shift that you?
The main trap was I was selling my time for money at the end of the day. And I loved what I did. I loved working with clients. I was really bloody good at it as well. But at the end of the day, I had to be in the gym face to face with the client for me to be able to earn money.
Yeah.
And that meant I had to be in the gym, away from family, away from home. It means I couldn't travel. I couldn't do all of these other things because the model, by the nature of it, means I had to be there to actually do it. So that's when there was a case of like, I wanted to be able to, for me right now, one of my core value is freedom.
Yeah.
And I can talk more about that and how I actually delineate freedom into something else as well. But freedom is one of my core values. So for me, I built a business where I can jump on a plane this afternoon and it does not affect my business at all.
Yeah.
Right. And so after selling my company last year and now moving into this new model that I'm in today, I wanted that same exact value. I wanted that same exact, all right, how do I do this? So I want the lifestyle and also the feeling that I want at the end of the day. And that's when, if a guy's listening to us today and he's like, yeah, I want to be able to achieve X, for example. Well, my question is like, why do you want to achieve X? What is it that you actually are ultimately looking for at the end of the day?
Yeah.
And is it aligned with your values and your virtues that you want to be able to live by?
Yeah.
And so much of the time as well, the major problem is we're choosing goals and things that we want to achieve, but it has only come to us through mimesis, like through the mimetic effect that like Rene Girard talks about. The people and environment around me is influencing me about what it is that I want at the end of the day. So that's why they say like you're the average of the 5 people that you hang around with. Like there is some real truth to that. So if you want to be able to expand or even be able to find what is more aligned to yourself, you need to be able to give that spaciousness away from others so that you can really like tap into what is actually truest to me at the end of the day. And that's not an easy journey by any means. Like it involves a lot of work and a lot of soul searching to get there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like, I love that, you're the average of the 5 people you're spending time with. What do you actually think that is? Like, why are we actually gravitating so much to people that look like us, like do the same thing as us? And then like, how can people that maybe not aware of that and being stuck in that, this is just what we do, we go out for Friday drinks, like the whole round. How can people start breaking free from that? Like you talk about this space, they need to stop up and pull themselves out.
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to understanding what it is that you want, and are you engineering your environment to best help you get to where it is that you want. And so I very much had that exact same situation when I moved to Dubai. I remember sitting on that plane on that trip. It was a 14-hour trip from Sydney to Dubai. And I remember very clearly making the distinction within myself that I'm only going to be surrounding myself with people that are best going to help me move forward. Like I don't deal with drama. I don't deal with people so I haven't drank alcohol for 10 years, for example. And if someone's like, oh, like come out for a drink with us, I'm like, oh, no, like I don't drink. But if they want to like push that thing, I'm like, okay, you're just not my person.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I've got no dramas.
Yeah.
Being able to put that to the side and making sure, because there are so many amazing people in this world. Like I put a lot of energy and effort towards making sure I cultivate the right people around me. Yeah. Like even this morning, like I spoke to 4 people this morning, 1 mentor and 3 business partners, and they are just exceptional people. Like I get off those calls and I'm just like, I'm lit up. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm like, this is amazing. I'm so grateful for this.
Yeah.
And so I want to give them my love. I want them to know that I appreciate them as well. So there is an element of distancing yourself away from the people that you think are not best serving you.
Yeah.
And then there is the element of you putting your time, energy, and effort towards the people that you do want to cultivate towards as well.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And I think, I don't know if it's something you and I would just have, or like entrepreneurial minded people have that innate curiosity, learning and exploring and trying different things. But maybe if you kind of like go back to where, you were training your personally training clients, I assume it was a lot of corporate guys as well. People are out of shape. People need to get in and out early in the morning and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Well, what did you see they were challenged by? Why were they stuck with their health and maybe their work and that sort of thing? And what would you speak to them about now that they can do to kind of like get themselves into more of that freedom mindset? What else can I do in my life?
So there's a couple threads that we can pull on with that question. And the first thing that comes to me is understanding that I don't want to make compromises, or at least I'm consciously choosing the compromises, or I'm consciously choosing the regrets that I want to actually have in life. And so for me, I wanted to be able to be in great shape. I wanted to be able to be financially free. I wanted to have an amazing relationship with my wife. I wanted to be a great father. I want to be surrounded by incredible people. Like for me, it was like, these are the most important things for me in my life. And I don't want to have to compromise on any of those.
Yeah.
I want to have it all.
Yeah.
So therefore I'm going to make that.
Yeah.
But how do I actually have that happen at the end of the day?
Yeah.
And so firstly, I think it's actually distilling down, like, what are the core values or virtues that I want to actually live by? So for me, there's 4. And so it started with me looking at my calendar and be like, where am I actually putting my time into?
Did you do that already back then?
No. This has been an accumulation today.
Yeah.
So like now when I sit down, because back then when I was training clients, I'd have heaps of corporate guys.
Yeah.
Especially there was a lot of financial advisors, because that was kind of the world of people that I was kind of like thrown into as well, which was great.
Yeah.
So there was heaps of guys, but I still see it today when I go to business programs and masterminds and I'm speaking in events and stuff like that. Like it's a very similar crew of people as well. And like I get onto and I see these amazing men that are achieving fantastic things, but they might not be taking care of their health, for example. They're out of shape.
Yeah.
Right? Or I know plenty of guys that have gotten divorced or don't have great relationships with their husband, with their partners, or with their children as well. And I was just like, for me, that's not tolerable. Like, I'm not going to tolerate that within myself.
Yeah.
And so it's not my advice. I would rather speak from experience than from advice. So my experience is by understanding what is truest to myself. And so for me, it's wisdom, wealth, health, and relationships. They're the 4 things that are most important to me right now. So that's why I base everything on.
Yeah.
And so before you said like, how do we have it and how do we do it with freedom, for example? But like, do you truly understand what freedom is? Do you truly understand what is it that you're moving towards? Do you truly understand what you're actually wanting to move away from at the end of the day? Like, have you actually defined success, freedom, what it is that you want at the end of the day? Most cases, when I ask a man sitting in front of me that, they're like, no, or it really takes, do you mean a couple of probing questions for me to completely unravel them and then go, yeah, you know what? Like, I don't truly understand. I'm like, okay, there's no problems with that.
Yeah.
So for me, I want to make sure that I have meaning in my life. I want to make sure that I'm impacting people with the work that I love. And freedom is what you said, but I delineate freedom into 2 different realms. And in most cases, there's freedom, like with the finishing DOM, and that is freedom that comes from an external source. So when I have the money and resources, for example, I have the freedom from external sources. Like I have plenty of money in the bank account to go and do the things and life that I can lead. So I have the freedom to be able to do that. Incredible.
Yeah.
However, I feel like on most cases, and it's the German word Freiheit. So HEIT, the finishing of freedom, is actually the freedom that is an internal source at the end of the day. This is what I would say is like peace and equity. And ultimately, that's all we're actually really looking for. Do you mean like, why do I want more money, for example? If someone's like, that's the goal. Well, I reckon it would probably take a few whys to unpack that down, like peel that onion to go, I want to feel safety, or I want to feel security. Or I know, it's like, for me, it's like a sense of peace.
Yeah.
So the one thing I'm optimizing for is how do I have more peace in life?
Yeah.
That's it.
Isn't it funny? Like you are very similar in that way. Like we're very go. Like we're almost like opposite of peace. But what we're actually trying to optimize for is calmness, peace, confidence, and that sort of thing.
Well, that's the thing. Like I look at the different stages of a man, for example. You'll go from like a knight to a prince, and then there's like a early prince, middle prince, late prince, and then there's a king, and then there's a sage.
Yeah.
So for me recently, I went through that late prince to king transition. Like Alison A. Armstrong's work, if someone's read and done her work, is incredible. And there's a transition called the tunnel that's in between late prince and king.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was by going through that tunnel, which is a tumultuous time. And the way she explains it, I won't explain it. someone to go deeper, go into her work. There's an amazing book called The Amazing Development of Men. I'd recommend guys read that.
Yeah.
And so by coming through the other side of that, I was then able to understand what was truest to me and how it is that I wanted to be able to act. So when I sold, like the reason why I sold my company at the end of last year was I wanted to be able to be more and not have more. Like just earning more money wasn't the thing that was there. Like I felt really out of alignment, and I had personally evolved past that business. Do you know what I mean? I was like, that's just not me anymore.
Yeah.
And so then it was me choosing, well, what's the model of business that I want to do? But also it comes to like, what's the life that I want to lead? Do you know, because people are like, oh, Chris, like you're really busy. I'm like, well, I'm actually not. Do you know what I mean? Like my work days are really between 8 a.m. and 12 midday. That's all that I work.
Yeah.
Typically it's 4 days a week as well. So it's like 4 hours a day, 4 days a week is what I work.
Yeah.
And so for me, I'm very clear, and I'm like, right, I want to profit $3 million a year. And I have the guidelines I call them enabling constraints. And I have the enabling constraints such as I work 4 hours a day, 4 days a week. And so therefore I know this is my output, right? And this is what I want to have. So therefore I just understand, well, what needs to happen for this output to equal this result.
I love that, because that's at the end of the day, you know, if you break it down to simple things you and I understand, it's a little bit like training as well. You know what I mean? Like you train really hard in the beginning, you're gaining a lot of muscle and you're developing your body, but then like later on, it's almost like passive income. It's like you can really just maintain your body with a couple of touches during the week and stay clean with your diet, and you look great for the rest of your life.
Like, I know you and I get this all the time. Like people come and be like, oh, you're in amazing shape, Chris. Like, how do I get doing a body like you? And I'm like, the first answer is really basically like, well, don't miss a workout for the next 10 years and then come back to me.
Yes, I know.
Right? It's like,
I know.
I've done this. Like, okay, granted, yes, I was a physique coach. So I knew what to do to get into peak condition. Do you know what I mean? Like I trained actors for movies. I trained like world champion fitness models for shows. And I trained Arab sheikhs. Like I'd done that and it was amazing. And then it was through trial and error of figuring it out for myself. And so that's when someone asked, you know, I find it really interesting. Like sometimes I was like, oh, like, what are your macros, Chris? Or like, what's your training? I'm like, there's nothing special about this.
I know.
At all. Do you know what I mean? Like there's no secret sauce to it.
Yeah.
But for me, there was actually a really big flip. And this is something that became apparent to me a little while ago. And I'd love to be able to kind of like transmute this to the guy listening. And there was like, why are you doing what it is that you're doing? So most people think success is the thing that comes from the outcome. Like what's the outcome of it, right? I much rather take the outlook or perspective of what Buddha says, whereas like success is actually coming from what's the motivation of why you're doing something. So do you have the right motivation behind why you're doing something? And that also very much correlates to more of a Stoic philosophical ideal, which is I only control my thoughts, actions, and intentions. That's all I can control. Do you know what I mean? So therefore, on a training perspective, it's a case of like, okay, am I going to the actual gym when I said I'm going to the gym? And am I training with the intensity and focus that I'm supposed to as well? Like you and I see it because we train at the same gym.
Yeah.
How many people are actually training with intensity and focus? Like they're on their phones or trying to take selfies all the goddamn time. I'm like, if you took less selfies, you'd be in better shape.
I know.
Like you could just do that one-for-one comparison with it.
Yeah.
But again, to go deeper upon that, I trained, like I competed as a fitness model before. Like I competed in London, Denmark, and Australia. And I did in Denmark as well. And then I did that because it was my ego driving me.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I wanted that external validation.
Yeah.
I also thought that being in better shape would help my fitness business as well. And so I went through that, and that's perfectly fine. And if someone's in that stage of their life and that's what's driving them, dude, have at it, go for it. Understand? You know what I mean? Like, but also understanding for me was a case of I don't go to the gym because of I want to be in better shape. I go to the gym because it's going to strengthen my character. Because at the end of the day, if I can ensure that I'm building my character to who I want it to be, then everything else is a side effect.
Yeah.
And that ultimately then comes back to, you know, am I creating the identity that I want at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So if someone's not earning the money that they want, if someone's not in the shape that they want, if someone's not being in the relationships that they want, like any of these things, it's ultimately because they're not actually embodying the identity that they need to be in, that is the person that does the things that achieves the end result. Right? 100%. So if you really then bring it back and go, how am I crafting my identity and my character and being able to focus on that? All of these other things are a side effect.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm able to earn millions a year now because it's a side effect from the skill set that I've been able to build. Do you know what I mean? The character traits and behaviors that then cause this to be really simple at the end of the day. Yeah. And so I urge the listener, because this is what I do for myself, is a case of like, well, what am I doing to actually craft the identity that I need to be and be that man?
Yeah.
And who's that man? So there's awareness. You know, like a lot of people jabber on about like awareness. They're like, oh, you need more self-awareness. That's good, but there's deeper levels into it. So for me, it's like, I want self-awareness because then I have to have investigation. And when I have investigation, that's when I can actually look at the things of what's going on. How am I actually showing up in my life? Am I attentive? Am I present in the conversations of the people that I am? Am I being empathetic, compassionate, and loving in what's actually going on? Am I actually being the person I need to be to do the things that I need to have happen at the end of the day? So I want awareness so I can have investigation. From that, then I can actually start doing things about it because I've taken responsibility from it.
I think this is huge, because this is also what I'm kind of like, speaking about and preaching and that sort of thing. And I think sometimes it's a little bit like, it's almost like it's three level too deep sometimes for people to understand, because you hear that a lot of the times as well in the business you've been in. Like, people want the six pack, people want the money in the bank account, people want the hot chick. Everybody, like, I don't know where that comes from us, but like, we're always looking for that tangible instant gratification thing. So you and I, we both know this is the key for everyone listening. Like, alter your self-identity to what you want, and you will eventually get what you want. But how could you almost like even break that down even more? So to a guy that maybe is doing well in his corporate job, but his health is out of order, and he kind of like are aware of it, but like, I can't stick to it. I'm not consistent. Like, it just never really been a thing for me. Like, they might look at you and I and think like, yeah, easy for you to say, guys, you're fitness guys, like, you always been doing it. What can a guy like that do to kind of like really like tomorrow do this, and this, and just repeat this cycle, and eventually the self-identity will alter and change?
So I think rather than answering it from like I think when you ask that question, it's almost trying to impose a very tactical answer. So it's like, oh, great, eat this much protein and do this many reps with this many sets. Like, that's for me very superficial, where it's more of a case of like, well, firstly, if a guy's saying like, oh, I'm doing well in my career, but I'm not in the shape that I want, my first question or perspective is, well, are you taking responsibility for that? And are you truly taking responsibility for that? Like, are you okay with you not being in shape, for example? Like, are you just saying it for like, do you mean, are you just putting words to it?
Yeah.
Which is cheap. Like, your actions are the things that are actually of value.
Yeah.
So by taking responsibility for myself, I'm then able to then go, okay, well, like, what am I missing in my life right now? And if I'm not in the shape that I want, well, then why is that not happening? And what do I need to have happen for that? And what do I need to, one word could be sacrifice, but what do I need to say, let go of to have, if it's time? Like, maybe a guy saying like, oh, I just don't have the time to go to the gym.
Yeah.
No, okay. That could be a fair excuse, but are you really doing it? How much do you
really trying
on your phone?
Yeah.
Cool. Like, where are you putting your time elsewhere? Like, we're both there. We're at the gym this morning, 6 a.m. Right? We could have been doing other things. I woke up at 4 a.m. Do you know what I mean? I had to do an early call before I went to the gym. I had to make sure I got back to go to a business partner call straight after it. Like, I was there doing it because I know that I'm not going to be spending time scrolling through social media. I'm not going, like, I was in bed by literally 8 p.m. last night. So I'm not sitting there watching a show on Netflix or something like that, because I knew I needed to have a good sleep to be able to have show up as I need to today. So for me, I think it's just taking responsibility. And then from that case, being able to understand, well, who do I need to go to find out what it is that I need to be able to do? So for me, I want to be able to find a mentor or a process or a system or a principle to be able to then kind of like stand on firm grounding to then be able to follow through on what it is that needs to happen. I just don't, it isn't that hard.
No.
It's simple, but then it takes the effort to be able to do what it is that you need to be able to do. Yeah. And most cases is people aren't willing to invest the time or effort needed to then make that happen.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Like I remember I was watching, was it Impact Theory with it was Tom Bilyeu, and then it was Ty Lopez that was on, and he was talking about he had a conversation with his psychologist around like all these things that I'm doing, trying to help people, motivate people, help them change their life and that sort of thing. Ty Lopez asked his psychologist around that, and he said like, am I wasting my time trying to change people? And the psychologist kind of like turned around and said like, well, basically, yeah, because a lot of people, or majority of the people, this is the reason why people are they're getting boys into the military by the age of 18, because there they still have a chance to kind of like mold them and change their belief and the habits and that sort of thing. But he said, when you get later into life, it's really, really hard to start changing. And the only way people change, he said, is either through severe trauma or pain. You know what I mean? And I think it speaks a lot to what we're talking about in terms of like, I just think a lot of people are asleep. You know what I mean? And I'm thinking to myself, like, why are we at the gym at 6 a.m.? Why do you wake up at 4? Why do you optimize? Why do you want to become better? And I think personally, just for myself, there is, obviously a reward for everything we do, everything we consume, learn, we're getting healthier and fitter, we're getting mentors and that. It has a reward. It pushes the boat forward. But for me as well, it's also about an insecurity about not wanting to go back
100%
to where we were and losing things and like being a loser, like whatever, there's this mix between that.
Yeah, totally. Like it's shown that we are much more wanting to move away from pain than move towards pleasure. And so do you need to amplify pain? Do you just need to wait because it's kind of like you're in pain, but you're not in enough pain to then actually be able to do something?
Yeah.
Which is unfortunately why it's the case of doing bankruptcy or death, doing with a family member or friend nearby, like something very painful or traumatic happens in life for us to be able to go, okay, enough is enough. I need to be able to go and do something. And that's the catalyst for movement, for change to be able to happen. It would be wise to be able to learn from other people's happenings in life for us to be able to propel ourselves forwards, which hopefully can be the case as well. Yeah. So we don't have to wear the scar before we actually change our story moving forward from it as well. But I'm not here to try and change anyone.
Nah.
It's not any of our jobs at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Like if you read Anthony DeMello's book, Awareness, like he talks about like, you're not here to try and wake people up. Don't try and wake people up. That's a hard, scary thing. That's not your job to be able to do as well. Like I forget where the quote comes from, but it's like the case of like, I wanted to be able to change the world, but then I became wise and now I know I just need to change myself.
Yeah.
And that's it. At the end of the day, I just need to make sure that I better myself, because it is in my hope that me being a better person has a natural side effect that I can then be able to help others, and I'd be able to be a better role model for then others to be able to pick up on and be able to profit in whichever way they can.
Yeah. 100%. So what would you say, like just to round around the health and the fitness and that sort of thing, like what are some typical routines you're doing that's simple for people to kind of like model and do? Like, why are you waking up at that time? Why are you doing cardio? And like, what are some things that you're doing, like basic things that people can kind of like get inspiration from to look and feel like you do? You know what I mean?
So I think one of something I've shared with a lot of guys and they're like, wow, that's actually really practical and really useful, was I rank myself every single day. So I journal every single morning, and then I'll do it in the evening as well. So typically I like a journal in the morning. I'll wake up, I'll meditate, and then I'll journal. And in the evening, after I've put my daughters to bed, I'll then sit down and journal. Takes 10 minutes. and then I'll have my time with my wife. And for me, there's 6 areas in life that I want to be able to look at. So I want to be able to look at how am I showing up as a father, as a husband, as a friend, as an entrepreneur, with my happiness and with my health. They're the 6 key areas, right? And at the start of the day, I will literally write down, what do I need to do in each of these 6 areas? What are the actions that I need to do for me to be able to show up in the way that I need to? So I set my intention for those 6 areas. And at the end of the day, I'll then simply look at myself and rank myself. How did I actually show up? Right? So therefore, I'm trying to give an objective means to what's actually happening for how I'm showing up as the person that I want to be able to be. And then I'll rank myself like in kind of like a total, like how was today out of 10, right? And out of all of it, I never use a 7. You're not allowed to use a 7. 7's a cop-out number because it's either an 8, 9, or 10, which is a passing grade, or it's 6 or below, which is a failing grade, right? So I don't use a 7. And so for me, I'll practically look at it and be like, okay, like what is it that I need to do to show up today in these 6 different areas? And also understanding as well, it's not about trying to have 10s everywhere all the time. So for example, I'm away from my family at the moment working. So as an entrepreneur, as a provider, I'm 10 out of 10, doing amazing, right? But as a father and a husband, I'm not actually home right now. So I can be giving myself 3s and 4s, right? So that means when my family flies over next week, what I'm literally doing is all of my work stuff I'm putting to the side, and I'm just being there as a father.
That's amazing.
Right? So I want to be 10 out of 10 as a father and husband in that period of time. So typically I find people are looking at things in like kind of like life through a straw. They're looking in too short of time snapshots. Expand the time horizon and look at what's going on, because what's the most natural thing that happens in the universe in life? It's cyclical, right? We're going through cycles of things.
Yeah.
There's peaks, there's like there's troughs, and then there's crests. Do you mean? There's bad and there's good. There's light and there's dark. There's up and there's down.
Yeah.
But like all of this stuff. So I just need to understand that we're going through these waves of everything as well. So I'm not trying to be perfect in everywhere.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to make sure that I'm bettering each and all the way through. Yeah. And so I actually had a conversation with a new business partner this morning, and I set the intention. I was like, this is the intention that we're setting with each other. And this is what I want us to be able to instill inside of the business as well. And it comes down to the gap between the best and my worst is razor thin. The gap between my best and my worst is razor thin. So for me, it's all about consistency. I don't want these massive peaks and troughs, right? I want to be able to shorten that down.
Stable, like.
Exactly. Because ultimately, like, what did I say before? I'm optimizing for peace. Another word for peace that I use is equanimity. And equanimity is being able to be more stable and to be able to bring that down. So by being razor thin between my best and my worst, I'm consistent and I'm able to make sure that I'm doing what I need to be able to do moving forward from there. So for like, what's like tangible stuff, do you know what I mean? I'm like, someone doesn't have to wake up at 4 a.m. I don't typically always wake up at 4. I'm just kind of like at a stage right now that I'm just doing that. And also because I'm away from family, like our youngest turns 2 in a few months, right? So I'm getting great sleep at the moment, do you know what I mean? Because I'm away from work right now. Like I'm able to sleep sideways on the bed and I'm able to like read before I go to bed. Like I'm able to like do those things. So I have amazing sleep.
Nice, isn't it, to be by yourself?
Oh, dude, it's incredible right now. It's incredible. So by doing that, I'm able to wake up because like my body's like waking up at like 4 and it's being like, I'm ready to go. So I'm not going to try and sleep any longer. I'm like, all right, let's get this rocking and rolling. So rather than falling in, again, in the too tactical range, it's like, what are some things for someone to align themselves? And I think if a guy sits down, firstly, just sets the intention for what it is that they need to do. Like, what is it that I want to do just today?
Yeah.
Just today, just the next waking, do you know what I mean? 16 hours. What is it that I want out of this day? And how am I going to show up? And then at the end of the day, like being able to self-reflect upon oneself and say, how did I actually do? And being totally okay with I didn't do that good today. And like one question you can ask yourself is like, where did I fall asleep today?
Yeah.
Because that can happen. And I went through that process and it was like, my falling asleep were like big chunks of the day. I was like, shit, you know what? I was really in just like autopilot for so much of how I went through today.
How do you analyze that? So in the end of the day, you're like, fuck, I was like from 2 to 4, I was just distracted, or like,
you're like, it's as simple as that. Like literally giving yourself the time and space to go, how did I actually show up today?
Yeah.
And go, fuck, you know what? This morning, I was just like, I wasn't aware, like I wasn't consciously choosing what it is that I'm doing and how I'm doing it.
Yeah.
And you kind of feel like, am I in autopilot mode where I'm just like cruising through everything, or I'm like, oh, I'm able to sit back,
presence,
take a breath. Yeah. Okay, cool. Like this is what I want to be able to do.
Yeah.
Huge difference. For me anyway.
Yeah. I'm to the opposite side as well. I'm like go on routines. So like, for example, meditation as a thing, you know, I've done it for like 7 years straight every morning, but like probably 80% of the time I'm just winging it. You know what I mean? I'm actually not present. I'm just like, play, let's go. You know, and your minds are
so
off,
for me,
you know?
when you say that, like what came up for me, this was a few years ago, and which is why I think I'm a little bit adverse to answering the questions like what's the best morning routine or like any of that stuff, is because it turns too much into a checklist.
Yeah, I know.
We live too much in today. I perceive we live too much in today in a prescriptive checklist world.
Yeah.
Give me the 5 things I need to be able to do.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, and so therefore you're just checking off. And for me, it was the same case. I was literally, I meditated, I journaled, I drank water, I did my cardio. Do you know what I mean? It was like these checklist things. It was like, I don't want to live life like that.
Yeah.
And you're also not getting the most out of it as well. Like you're not actually creating presence and awareness into what's going on when I'm just like, okay, I need to meditate for 20 minutes now and I'm just going to do it and then I move on. Like I don't meditate to be a good meditator. No. Do you know what I mean? I don't train to be in better shape. Like I do all of that so I can be a better person at the end of the day.
Yeah, what am I optimizing for in the end of the day?
Yeah, like why am I meditating?
Yeah.
Right? I'm not meditating to become enlightened. I'm not meditating because I want to reach some ecstatic state. And like this is something I can like really dissect, but a lot of the time as well, and this comes from like I studied a lot of like Dzogchen, like non-duality as well.
Yeah.
So it's a case of like, if I'm meditating because I am attached to me wanting to feel good, for example, kind of actually missing the point.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so you're wanting to be able to do it because you're wanting to actually be in this presence and in a state that has you best show up as the way that you need to be as well. So I completely agree because I found myself doing that. I was doing all of the right things.
Yeah.
Because that's what I was supposed to do. And I was just checking those boxes off.
Yeah.
But I think you get to a stage where you're like, oh, actually, that's not the right thing to be able to do. I need to be able to move past this.
I think it's, you know, everything goes back to, you know, building the body because that's what we know. But it's like age as well. You know, it's almost like, we're doing all these like 3 steps to something. And then when we embody it, and we actually done it for years, then we kind of like have our own like flow through it and be like, I don't need to do that at that time or in that order because I have control, I have experience.
Yeah.
So so routine wise and that sort of thing, you know, we talked off camera in terms of like how we binge watch and listen to you know, content and that sort of thing. Do you think people are listening and reading and studying enough today, or do you think they do it too much and they just don't know what to do? Like, what do you think that the general population are actually doing, and what can they do to?
I think people are randomly consuming too much. And so it's like my spidey senses say someone that's actually watching or listening to us right now, they're doing the things to like better themselves. So I'm like, all right, I'm in personal development, self-development. Like, do you know what I mean? I want to better myself. And so therefore I'm just going to be consuming a bunch of different stuff. And that's what I was supposed to be doing. I was supposed to be listening to the podcast. Do you know what I mean? I was supposed to read the books. I'm supposed to be doing the self-development courses. Like there's very much a self-development junkie attitude that comes to it. And so I think there's too much random consumption, number one. Number two, I don't think there's enough actual like, of like, what's the 3 pills? The 3 pills are stillness, spaciousness, and silence. So how much of those am I actually giving myself?
That's an interesting one. Yeah.
Because so for example, I've done a couple of darkness retreats before. And typically when I say to someone, like it comes up in conversation, they're like, that's crazy. I'd never want to do that. Like, and I'm like, I find that interesting. You don't want to do that because they're scared or they're worried about just being with themselves.
Yeah.
That's
was that like in a room in darkness?
In a room.
Completely. Yeah.
So it's literally in a room.
Heard about that.
There is just a tiny single bed. There's a shower, a toilet. There's enough space between the two for like a yoga mat. And there's a seat, and then there's like a two-way kind of like door, which is where they bring the food in and out of. So like they'll slide there open, put the food in, close theirs, they'll knock, and then you can slide yours open. So you can't see anything. Like
no light, there's no nothing. Yeah. Even when they give you the food and stuff?
No, nothing. Yeah. And so I really enjoyed it. Like I practiced and did it. So I first found out about the practice when I was practicing Dzogchen. And that was kind of like a part of the things of that lineage. And again, so this is a great example. I said to my Buddhist teacher, I was like, okay, great. I'm going to do a 7-day darkness retreat. Yeah. He's like, no. He's like, just start with 1 day. So he said, just start with a few hours.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I was always thinking more is better.
Yeah. Go all out.
This is a good thing. I'm going to do 7 days.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like the actual like traditional practice of like a darkness retreat is 49 days. Nuts.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so I started with 2 days. I was like, all right, I'll do 2 days to start with. My first one was 2 days, right? And I got in, I sat down, and then I remember the guy closing the door and that door closing and just boom, zero light, nothing. And I'm like, okay, this is just me. And having that, like now I get to be with myself. And it was one of the best experiences of my life. I've done a couple so far, and they've all been fantastic experiences for me. But it was also doing the work to be able to lead up into it, like being able to actually sit in meditation for long periods of time, being able to like really get the busyness and distractions away as well.
Was that the driver behind it? Like, what was your intention for it? Like, what stimulated your interest to actually want to do that? What are your siege?
I just saw my own studio.
Yeah.
I knew that the right thing for me was me being good or at least okay with myself and me being happy and content with what's going on between my ears and me just like in this presence of myself. I wanted to be happy with myself at the end of the day. And I didn't want it to have to come from this external stuff that was going on. Like I knew it had to come down to this internal stuff. So again, it was Freiheit. I wanted more of that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That internal freedom at the end of the day. And so, it's an interesting experience because there's some things that I didn't think about going into it. So say, for example, when you go to the toilet, you do a shit.
Yeah.
How do you know that you're clean?
Yeah.
You don't.
Yeah.
So every time I did a shit, I'd also have a shower after it. Do you know what I mean? Just to make sure I'm not tracing it. The first meal I had, I fasted. Each time going in, I fasted for the first 24 hours, which is interesting because you lose complete concept of time really quickly.
Right.
To go, I do not know what time of day.
Like within the first day sort of thing?
No, within the first, so the first time I went in, it was really interesting. Went in, door closed, great. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go into meditation. And there was 3 specific types of meditation I knew that I would be able to use depending on which tool I think I needed to be able to have. So anyway, went into meditation, thought I probably meditated for about 45 minutes. To me, I was like, that was about it. That felt like a 45-minute meditation. And then also going into the darkness, you get really tired. Like it feels like tiredness, like pours out of your body and you just want to like rest and sleep. So I meditated and then I stretched and I was like, I'm just going to lie down. I remember like laying down and I just like fell asleep. And I remember waking back up and being like, oh, wow, okay, I fell asleep. And then I was like, I have no idea what time it was.
Yeah.
So I don't know how long I meditated for. I don't know how long I slept for. Yeah. So now I'm completely like disembobulated with what time of day it is. And then I just like had to come to peace with that. And so anyway, then they served the first meal and I said I wanted it was like a soup. It was like a lentil dal with like vegetables was the meal. And so I remember getting the food, putting it on my lap. And then I started to eat and then I could hear the soup pouring down. I was like, oh shit, like I'm pouring soup on myself. Then I had to like put it away, clean it back up, or try to clean it back up. And then just being like, oh, I'm making a complete mess of myself right now. Like, and then like you getting food, and you obviously like there's a spoon, but you're using your hand to make sure that you eat everything. It was like it's quite an amusing situation, but it's something to do.
Was that like 2 days, or did you do longer as well? Or
the longest one I did in 3 days. So it was like 2 days and 3 days that I've done so far.
So coming out of the other side, like what was the sort of like the key thing? You just more peace,
much more peace, much more acceptance and tranquility, just like within myself. There was these real epiphanies about like what was truest to me or most important to me as well. Like I had some like real like insights come to me as well. My daughters were laughing at me because I was practicing writing with my eyes closed, because I was like, okay, like when I get these insights, how am I going to record them? I'm in complete darkness. So I knew there was pen and paper. And so I practiced writing with my eyes closed, which is hilarious if you try that, because like for me, when I first did it, I was just writing over the same thing. Like, I wasn't moving down the page. So thankfully I wrote this stuff down and it was legible. And it was extremely
helpful,
insightful for me at the time.
Wow. Yeah, I do that sometimes as well. When I wake up in the middle of the night, I'm like, like on the
light on.
Nah, that's what I love about you. You know what I mean? Like you got like the sort of like the holistic approach to, what would you say, the modern days capitalism. Like we want to expand, we want to build something for ourselves, but you're really making sure you're keeping that pillars of life that means most to you. I think it's very, very inspirational. You know what I mean? Because you got a family of 4 daughters. How is it? I look at my sister with two kids, and I'm like, and I think that's a good thing as well. Like I think a lot of people use kids as an excuse for not doing what they're supposed to do, like dreams and staying healthy and that sort of thing. How do you manage all that? Like, is that just you and your wife that's on the same page with a lot of the things, or simple as that?
I did not like, and I would not allow myself to use my children as an excuse for me not doing the things I wanted to be able to do or be. I think that's a really shit cop out. And I also think that's like even a subconsciously really bad thing to put upon your children. Like, oh, I wasn't able to do this because of you.
They hear that. You mentioned that.
It's terrible. And I like, it's not like you have to say that. Like they'll pick up on it. So like our children are very good at picking up on what's going on. Like they don't need to be verbally able to communicate, oh, I'm feeling all of these things. Like they'll pick up and they'll understand. And also very much kind of like understanding after being a father for a bit over 10 years now, that our children learn very much mainly by watching us, not by listening to us. So we have to be the person we need to be able to be for them to be able to learn. So I knew the values that I wanted my children to be able to grow up on, and also understanding that our children come for their own purpose. Like they're not there for me to feel good about myself. Do you know what I mean? Like they're not there for me like that. They don't owe us anything, our children. Do you know what I mean? So for me, it was a case of, we have 4 children. We're a family of 6, and we want to be able to travel around the world. So one thing as well is like a lot of people are, how do you travel as a family of 6? Well, you can do it. Like, yes. Logistically, it's very different. Do you mean a lot of seats? There is a really big difference between me going away on a work trip, where it's just like me in one suitcase and like, peace out, I'm out the door, like going, like even just like getting through the airport or on the plane, like all of that jazz. It's hilariously different, but it's also a part of it. Like our eldest daughter, she's done hundreds of flights. She knows the exact routines and what to do and all that stuff with flying in airports and all of that jazz. Do you know what I mean? Like, I remember she was only 4, maybe 5 years old, and she filled her first passport up. Do you know what I mean? Like that's how much travel that we've been able to do. But also I'm blessed. My wife, Lauren, is an incredible woman. I wouldn't be able to do this without her, like at all. And so it's very much an understanding of, as a relationship and as a couple, who do we need to be individually in this relationship, and how do we need to show up for each other in this relationship as well. And then like, yeah, very much so as a family of 6, like it's how do I have the time to do the things that I need to do? How do I have the time for me and my wife to have together as well? How do I have the one-on-one time needed for each of my children and as collective as well? So like there is a lot of logistical things that need to happen as well, but I would not allow myself to have it as a cop-out excuse as to why these certain things happen.
Yeah, I think people they get stuck in their ways of doing in their bubbles and stuff. And then like my dad would always say like, we're on good terms today, me and my dad, you know what I mean? But it's like, you know, when I'm speaking about what I want to do in my dreams and like we're gonna do this and we're gonna, you know, freaking wrap around the planet and stuff, he's like, yeah, but like Simon, everybody can't do what you do. You know what I mean? There has to be someone in the factory and someone on the farm and someone doing all that sort of thing. And it's always like an interesting thought because he's kind of right, you know what I mean? But I'm also coming from a point of like, I think more people should pursue their dreams, you know what I mean? And I don't know if it's just because I'm looking logistically at someone like my sister or people in my family and that sort of thing. I'm like, yeah, it is kind of tough to get it all put together and that sort of thing. I think a big part, and that's really what I want to talk to you about. It's like the whole entrepreneurial journey and, you know, making money and going in that direction, which definitely opens up for a lot of these choices, you know? So, like what got you into entrepreneurship and also what can people kind of like learn from you? Like what's driving you in that business, making money aspect?
My parents were both 17 when they had me. So I grew up in a family where we did not have a lot of money at all. And I very much grew up with a belief that it was like money was a thing that would make life great. So I was very driven by wanting money. But then I also had like this spiritual side of me that was the case of like, oh no, making money is a bad thing. You know, like you don't need money for all this sort of stuff. So it was very interesting for me because I had like these two competing kind of belief systems going as well, which is hilarious today because like ultimately you actually need both to come together.
Exactly. Yeah.
You like, and that's where like so much of the work that I do now is actually wanting to bridge success and spirituality together. So I feel like they're actually one thing at the end of the day. Like I think the best spiritual endeavors that we can go on is building a business, having a family. Do you know what I mean? Like these are great roads is extremely spiritual. And then again, I understand as well from like a different philosophical schools, there are different ways to be able to look at this. So like more of a Hindu way of philosophy could be like, oh, like you're a householder and therefore like this is the role that you're meant to play. Do you know what I mean? So when you look at someone else, such as your sister, for example, and because I used to do this, so then you'd like project onto someone else. So I'd look at someone else and be like, oh, you should be chasing after your dreams. You should be doing all of these things. Like you should be like going after it. There is a case as well. It would be like, well, what if that's their role to play?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like I look at my parents as well and say, especially my father, and I could say, oh, you should be doing all of these other things and like all this like blah, 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 blah. Shooting upon ourselves or shooting upon someone else, I just don't think is the correct means. So there is a case in point of, okay, so understand this. This was an important kind of like understanding for myself. There is a very Western modern culture today that is very willpower based, which is a case of like, I can go after my dreams. I can achieve anything that I want. Do you mean you can make it happen? There is also another point of view, which is a case of like a fatalistic thought, which is a case of like, it's pre-written. Do you know what I mean? Like God has already pre-written what it needs to do. And it's just a case of the world will unfold the way that it is going to unfold. Right? So they're very competing values, right? So again, I think there is a golden mean. I think there is a middle path and like, how do I actually understand this? So for me, I don't believe that it was just me being able to be this amazing person that's been able to go after it and be able to achieve these great successes and live this great life. There is a massive part that Lady Fortune has played for me to be able to get here, for us to be here right today. There is a massive, that I didn't get hit by a car riding the motorcycle here today. Thank God.
Yeah.
Right? So there is a very much a case of like Lady Fortune plays her role in it. And also there is an element of like, where is our free will and what is it that we can do with that free will at the end of the day, if someone believes in free will also. So for me, it's this understanding of really how much am I showing up as what I need to be able to do, and not, you know what it actually really is? It's accepting everyone for the way they are. So when I'd look at someone else and I'd start wanting to judge and should upon them, I would want to turn that into compassion and empathy and say, you are perfect the way that you are, and I accept you for the way that you are right now. Doesn't mean you don't want better for them. Not at all. You can still have that as well. But I think there's just more of this acceptance as well. There's like this softening, this, again, it's like this, I can like breathe and like relax into it and accepting them for who they are as well. It's easy for us to do this like with our parents. So for me, I very much did this with my parents because I saw my parents projecting onto their parents, right? And I was like, oh, hang on, I want to stop this kind of like this going on right now, and being able to look at my mother and father and go, I love you for exactly who you are. Thank you so much for absolutely everything, and just you are great, and just accepting for it. I want them to be healthy, happy, and amazing, and that goes for everyone in life as well. So it was just a case of like not wanting to kind of like should upon other people, and an understanding of what's the case of the understanding of how do I live a life worth living?
Yeah. And then, it goes for us as well. Us.
That was the hardest one for me.
I know. I think that's the real one that really will set you free from, like, as you said, like blaming your parents or blaming whatever school or boyfriend, girlfriend, sort of thing. Really getting to a point of like, I don't know, like how to say it. It's almost like everything is happening for a reason, and everything is guided you to where you are right now. Even if you can flip that association, viewpoint on, I don't know with you, said like you grew up with not so much money, so there's probably subconsciously a driver for you to do well for yourself.
Massive.
That's amazing.
It was a wound that I was trying to heal this entire time, which is hilarious, because then it comes down to like, I think about now, like, what's the game that I want to play, right? So like, what is the game that I want to play? Do I want to play the money making game? Do I want to play the social media game? Like all the, and so much of it was like, and so I was driven by money very much wanting to. And so then at the end of last year, after selling the company, like I was financially free. So I define financial freedom as 200% of my ideal living expenses come from passive income. For me, that's financial freedom. And I achieved that at the end of last year. But you know what was like super interesting to me was I felt my drive to create more, so much more. I was so much more driven and more purposeful about what I was doing. And my ability to earn income has just blown out of the water compared to what I was doing before. And it came from a different motivation. Like it came from a different place, and I was playing a different game.
Creative.
And I was like, oh my God, I wish I'd done this 10 years ago. Like, holy shit. But understanding that it is what it is at the end of the day. And so I asked myself, like, what's the game that I want to play right now? Because the best way to win a game is to choose the game that you're playing first. Right. And so much of the case, what a man needs to do is a man needs to just go, you know what? I don't want to play this anymore. I'm going to pick my ball up and I'm going to walk away and go somewhere else. And that can be a really hard thing to do, because like before we were talking about, you need to distance yourself from other people, for example. Do you know what I mean? And we are cultural humans at the end of the day. We want to be accepted. We want to be a part of the tribe. We don't want to get kicked out. So, and for myself, I was very much wanting to people please as well.
I think I have that as well.
Like I was like, I wanted to make everyone super happy. So therefore I would like throw myself under the bus, or I would do a half-assed job and spread myself too thin and not put myself where I needed to really be to truly serve the people that were most important. So everyone lost in the way that I was acting that way. And I think a big part of what you said before, what comes up for me, is forgiveness. Like being able to forgive other people. Like there's an amazing book called Radical Forgiveness there's one called radical self-forgiveness, which is amazing because that was one that changed my life. Going through radical self-forgiveness, because I had to forgive myself through so many things that I had done and gone through in life to then get to that peace that I was feeling myself. But I had to do it with other people as well, like where I felt I was done wrong by and all of these other aspects. Like I went through it, like I forgave my parents, previous business partners, like just so many. Like there's an actual exercise when you go through the book, there's an actual exercise to go through.
Yeah.
I need pages and pages and pages of it. Do you know what I mean? And going through it to then finally go, oh, like I'm good. Like to truly understand that forgiveness is done. Like forgiveness is the gift you give yourself.
Yeah.
At the end of the day. And I can't recommend it enough because I feel like not enough people are thinking about it or even talking about it or trying to promote that kind of like can help someone. So I think something like that can do a lot of good. And for me, it was very much a case of then getting back to, I was forgiving everyone else, but then I had to forgive myself through all this other stuff and then being like, but then also understanding that it's a constant work in motion as well. You know, but I've got to keep coming back to I call them practices. I've got to keep coming back to those practices.
Yeah. What is that quote actually? We don't like, what's the quote that we don't believe the beliefs other than the belief we think is too true about ourselves. Like, do you remember that quote? I can't remember it, but it's like basically going into what you're saying in terms of like, or like the question for you is like, what are some limiting beliefs that you're saying like, okay, I was chasing money and now I got the money, I got the financial freedom, and now I'm returning back to a different way of operating and it actually expanded me even more. So that could be, you know, something personally for myself, you know, because when you're going through the grind phase and the building phase, and the working phase, if you're looking back right now, achieve what you achieved, like, would you change the way you did it? Or do you feel like that is necessary to do that?
For me, it's a part of the journey.
Yeah.
So I don't want to change anything.
Yeah.
Because it got me to who I am, where I am right now.
Yeah.
I'm so thankful for that.
Yeah.
I'm so thankful for that. And it's also because I can't change the past.
Yeah.
So like on a real pragmatic, practical level, right? For me, it just makes sense.
Yeah.
I would rather reframe a situation so that it gives me more peace.
Yeah.
So I'd rather reframe my history in a way where it was like, that happened for a very good reason.
Yeah.
For now, I'm able to then go and do better things.
Yeah.
So therefore, fantastic. Like I'm happy that these hard times, like I've had anxiety attacks. I've been clinically diagnosed with depression. I've had suicidal ideation. Like I've gone through fucking dark times, but I can truly say I'm really thankful I went through that and be at peace with that as well.
Yeah.
I wouldn't wish it upon anyone else. I don't want to have to go through it again.
Yeah.
But I'm thankful that I've gone through it because it's crafted the man today. So again, but even as a case of like, if someone's like, oh, Chris, that feels a bit fluffy. What if it was just like, I'm just doing that on purpose to reframe the situation so that I can move forward in a better way.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like I just need to change my lens.
Yeah.
Like mindset at the end of the day, like for me, mindset is the lens in which you perceive the world that shapes the world you live in. That's what mindset is. So I just need to either change because we're all looking at life through a lens. You and I can look at the exact same, we can witness the exact same situation and see vastly two different things. We'll craft two very different stories as to what is going on right now. So for me, I either need to clean the lens so I see things better. That could be awareness. Do you know what I mean? Or I need to change the lens and reframe the situation so that I craft a different story about what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It really is like, it's that simple. It's it's that whole like limiting beliefs around like, you know, we think it's true, you know, but is it really true? Like,
what is truth?
What is truth? You know what I mean? Like, so like, for example, like what are some things around like maybe some limiting belief you knew were definitely a limitation, like when you were early on in your business, growing and becoming an entrepreneur, that you're looking back at right now, like, okay, that needed to be shattered, like whatever, like I have to work 15 hours a day to be successful, like, or I have to do everything myself, or like, what was some limiting beliefs you had early?
Yeah. So I think there's actually three really clear ones. And I see a lot of, so far I did this calculation a couple of weeks ago. I've clocked up probably over 120 hours so far this year consulting entrepreneurs, all doing over $1 million, between $1 to $10 million a year. I've done a lot of talking time consulting just this year on that. The most common things that I've said. So it was interesting because from every call, I've kept notes, and I've kept notes. I've kept this one note called the formula, which is essentially like, these are things that I see working, right? So I'm able to see on a very meta level what's working, not what's not working. And so I've kept like, what's the formula, right? So I've got this one note, so like, oh, like this is the things that I consistently see that's working. I've got this other note, which is the not formula, which is, this is the stuff and all the mistakes that I'm seeing as well. So I'm like, this is the not to-do list, and this is the to-do list at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So 3 common things is, I have to work super hard all the time. Now, what I deem incorrect with that belief is the all the time part. There are times and places for you to have to work and grind and hustle. Do I believe that's what you're supposed to do all the time? No, I do not. There are phases to this as I go. So someone that says, oh, you're supposed to be grinding the whole time, I disagree with. Someone that says you're supposed to be just like chilling out and doing, like, someone might say, look at me, you go, oh, you're working 4 hours a day, 4 days a week. Like, I do 16 hours of work a week, right? Oh, I just need to do that. No, that is incorrect. Have you built the infrastructure, the system, the skill set to that to be able to happen, right? So there's nuance to it. And I think people want to like
just look at the end result and like
exactly
model Chris.
So do I need to work hard all the time? That was one belief. Do I need to do all the things? Right? And so that's where it's a case of, I find this super interesting. There's a lot of people right now online talking about like the one-person business, right? It's like, how do I as a one-person business earn $1 million, for example? Or like, how do I as a one-person business earn great money? Now, what I see is there's nothing wrong with that per se, but when it comes to, say, business models, like when I sit down with an entrepreneur and we're talking about, all right, what's the right business model for you? I can get really deep into that conversation and craft like, what is exactly the business that you're supposed to be running? How many people are you supposed to be serving? In which way are you supposed to be serving? How much money are you supposed to be profiting from this business? Like, how does the intricacies of the actual systems inside the business supposed to be operating? Do you mean like, I'll peel all of those things down? And so it's a case of, okay, if someone's trying to do a one-person business, is it simply because they don't have the skill set to run a team? Can you lead a team? And therefore, because like, it's the story of the fox and the grapes, right? Do you know the story of the fox and the grapes? Right. So the story of the fox and the grapes, where there was a fox and he saw these grapes hanging from this vine just up, and he would run up, he'd jump and try and he missed the grapes. He'd go back, run up, jump, try and get the grapes. He did this over and over again, right? And so after a while, he goes, you know what? Those grapes aren't worth it. They're sour. They're no good. And he walks away. It wasn't the grapes that were sour and no good. He just made this story out of it. Oh, no, that's the wrong thing, right? So therefore, that's not the right thing to go for.
Yeah.
That's happening so much in today when someone's listening to podcasts or YouTubes and stuff like that. Someone's saying, oh, this is the right thing to do, but they're just calling the sour grapes because they didn't have the skill set, the behaviors, the identity needed to actually make that thing happen, right? So for example, it's like a case of, I'm supposed to be doing all the work. Well, it's a case of like, okay, well, hang on. Is that so? Is that true? So is it a case of, do you need to better learn to delegate and lead team members? Can you actually create the systems for things to be able to run so you don't need to be able to do it? There's that question.
Skill,
Exactly.
Yeah.
The third belief, I think, really comes down to like, how much money can I make? What can I actually accept?
What do you mean by that as a limiting belief?
Like I can only earn $100,000.
Right.
I can only earn $1 million.
Yeah.
Like there's a story back there that is enabling or disabling the amount of money that you're really making at the end of the day.
How do you shadow that? So let's say you've been at a certain revenue or certain profit like Mart for a long time.
Yeah. So this will happen super often. Someone will like get onto a call or have a conversation with someone. They'll be like, oh, it's really plateaued. Do you know what I mean? At 150 grand a month. I can't get past this 150 grand a month. So I can get super pragmatic with this stuff. Typically I see business in 1, 3s, and 10s. And by what I mean is a business will have changes and have different problems at 1, 3s, and 10s. So let's say at 100 grand a month, you're going to have a certain set of problems. So going from say 0 to 100 grand a month, there's a certain set of problems and there's a certain focus that one should have. Between 100 and let's say 250 grand a month, there's another set of problems, another set of focus that one should have. And then say between 250 to $1 million a month, there'll be another set of problems and go from there. So let's just say we're trying to go from 0 to $1 million a month. There is 3 distinct stages that I see between those. Now, if someone doesn't understand that they're broken into these stages, well, then how are they going to understand what's going on?
Yeah.
But you need to go, okay, well, this is the stage that I'm at, and these are the problems that I'm having right now. And so I truly believe that the business is really a direct reflection of the head honcho that's in charge of it, right? So it's like you as the entrepreneur, your business is a direct reflection of you and where you're at, what's going on there with what's actually happening in the business. But then you can peel that onion a little bit further and say like, okay, let's say I see this commonly right now is a case of someone's, let's say at about the 250 grand mark. And it's a case of, okay, from here, what's typically lacking is the ability for you to actually have the team and the systems in place, because you have to step back at that stage to be able to let the business actually start doing its thing. So if you got like what I call like entrepreneurial rope burn, like you're trying to grip onto it, that rope so hard, and it's just actually just ripping skin off. You've got to let go. Like you've got to let go to be able to leave your team and your systems to be able to do what they need to be able to do. So typically what I see is people have B and C players as their team members, but they're expecting an A result. That's never going to happen. Or people have B and C systems in their business and they're expecting an A result. And that's never going to happen. So it's always a case of like, do I have a business, do I have a people problem, or do I have a systems problem? They're the 2 questions I commonly ask. And it's a case of if I have a people problem, is the person the right person for that job? Are they skilled and enabled to do what they need to be able to do to achieve great at their role? Or do they need to be replaced? Or is it a systems problem where the system itself isn't actually set up the way that it needs to be able to get the result for like, whether it's lead generation, sales, or delivery and stuff like that?
So what would you say, like, because a lot of entrepreneurs, like as you said, like the one-man business and stuff, what do you see as the common things that they're doing? Like, let's say from the first 0 to 150K a month. Like what is it that they're doing that's really preventing them from not growing? Like, let's say they're good at sales. Let's say they're good at promoting the business. Let's say they can get results. They can do basically the whole thing. What do you see as what's happening there? Is it the delegation? Is building the team? Is that really the main thing?
So between 0 to 100K in sales, and let's just say we're talking specifically for like coaching and service businesses, right? In that case, it's the head honcho just needs to focus on trying to create a replicatable system to get leads and sales. That's it. So it's kind of like the 5 1s, right? The 5 1s, which is I need one source of lead generation. So don't try and do a podcast and YouTube and Facebook and TikTok and Instagram and all of these other things. One, right? I have one means there. You have one thing that you're selling, one program. I'm not trying to sell an ebook and a membership site and one-on-ones and a retreat and all these other things. Choose one. I need one conversion mechanism. I need one way to actually make a sale. I'm not trying to sell through DMs, trying to do calls, trying to do webinars and all that other thing. Trying to do one, right? What's the 4th one? Leads, or one marketplace, one market, right? So what's actually one niche that you're actually trying to choose? What's the one person you're truly actually trying to help? And then you do those for 1 year. Typically, that's all it is. Just focus on the 5 1s.
You could almost do that like 1, 2, 3 people. You know what I mean? On your team.
100%.
Like easily.
You can totally get. You can really get away with that for sure. Like it will be a grind.
But do you feel like everybody should go through that?
But I think you should, because I feel like you need to wear the hats in the business to understand what's going on. Because if you haven't worn the hat, it's really hard to create the system to understand how that thing needs to work. And 2, how do you truly delegate that to a team member and know that they're supposed to be doing it really well until you have? However, again, there's nuance, until you get to a point where you have to go and recruit someone far superior than you to come into the business to then be able to do something, right? So that's when you like might get to the point where you're like, you know what? I need a really good paid media manager. I need someone to run my ads, right? And you could have done everything organic until now. But now you're like, okay, now I need to start running ads properly. So you need to go and get someone that's got a track record of being able to have really good results in that and be able to pay them what's needed for you to be able to then have that run.
Yeah. What would you say is your biggest traits or beliefs that you have around, like you're aware of yourself right now that brought you to where you are right now? Like, what's the strongest traits and belief that you value in yourself as the indicator for the success you had in life and business?
One, consistency. Just showing up and doing what's needed on it.
And how is that? How do you feel that's cultivated? Is that through the gym over the years? Is that just through?
I think the gym's a great analogy for it. Do you know what I mean? Because it's just like you go every single day. You don't question it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm literally going to the gym to train after this. Do I really want to today? No, I'm not really feeling it. Fuck, I just got to do it. Just go and do it. Don't stop thinking about it and do it. So another great way that I think about this as well is I'm married. Now, I made a very clear distinction, and it was a case, and this came it came to the point where it was a case of I don't even give myself the option of being or sleeping with other women. That's not even on the table. It's not on the table.
You don't see.
And because it's not on the table, I don't allow myself to even have that option. It doesn't take energy away from me. Right? So it's just like, you just take that thing away. You don't even have to worry about it. So that's that case. So consistency, again, the difference between my best and my worst is razor thin. Two, I think there is a certain level of deceptive belief in which one needs as well as an entrepreneur. Like, you need to be able to believe in yourself in a extremely optimistic way, even when people say they don't believe in you, whether they say directly or indirectly. If everyone believes in what it is that you're doing, I don't think you're thinking big enough. Right? But you need to have enough self-deception to believe in what you're doing. But at the same time, you need to be able to change directions when evidence is contrary. So what I mean by that is, you're like, okay, I'm building this business. I'm going to build it to $250,000 a month. That's exactly what I want. That gives me the money that I want, the impact I want, all these things. Amazing. That's what I'm doing. And you're like, this is the way that I'm going to make it happen. And you believe in, you've got to keep showing up, and you've got to keep doing it day in, because a lot of the business and entrepreneurial world is you're going to get punched in the face every day, right? But you need to be able to dust yourself off, go back to sleep and wake up refreshed and be able to do it again. But you need to be able to change directions when evidence is contrary to say, oh, actually, that's not working. Now I need to go and do this. So you see how there's like this paradox, and this is where a wise mind can hold the tension between the paradox. And that's a case of, I'm going to just like, I've got this. Like, this is going to happen. Do you know what I mean? To this, oh, actually, I need to change directions. This isn't going to work. I need to put this away. I need to let go of that right now. And I need to go over here.
How do you acknowledge that? How do you see that? Because I think that's hard.
I don't know how to teach that. I don't know how to share that. I think that comes from experience. I don't think that's something where I truly don't believe at this point. I'd love for someone to change my mind. I do not believe at this point that someone can say, oh, I can teach you how to be able to do that. I think that comes from you being in the trenches and you being in the game. Mentors,
like people conversations, like you get a lot.
That definitely aids. Like that's a big part of it. Like I'm very much ensuring that I'm surrounded by amazing mentors and people that I can learn of. Like I had a call this morning with Simon, an incredible mentor, an incredible human being as well. Like, and as a father, literally this man is like, when I think of amazing fathers, he's at the top of my list, right? But entrepreneurially and business minded wise, I think he's one of the best that walks this earth. And I posed this problem to him. I was like, hey, I'm trying to figure out this model and this system and this, like, how do I articulate this thing that I'm putting together? And it was like, I timed him. It was like a bit over 3 minutes. He completely unpacked this thing and just showed me. And I had goosebumps all over me. I was like, oh my God, like this is incredible. So yes, surrounding yourself by the right people and trying to have that close proximity is extremely important. And like, I can very much say, you know what, like I've gotten to where I am today because of these people that have been these amazing role models and shown me ways and the things to be able to do as well. So I think
mentorship is huge, you know what I mean? Like, and that's why content and that sort of thing today is, you know, it's good and bad, you know, because there's a lot of it. And what am I listening to? But yeah, I've always been there. For some reason, I've always just got along with like older and wiser guys. Like I was like, when I competed as a bodybuilder, I had like, you know, a coach. He was like old Mr. Universe, you know, he's like 50, 54 years old, like typical Dorian Yates kind of style training. Yeah. So I've always just had that throughout my life. I remember when I was a personal trainer in Melbourne as 22 years old, like barely spoke the language, you know, got in there, like started as a personal trainer. You know, I met what was he, like a hedge fund sort of guy, you know, I started training him, but quickly I was just like, you don't need to pay me. Can we meet up for coffee? You know what I mean? So I think having that, and it goes back to that like positive self-belief in yourself and that curiosity to want to learn and to want to improve and to want to become better. I think if you just carve that one out, a lot of doors will open from that. You know?
I think if I could add another one, which is funny because I've been told by so many people I need to do this more often. Like when you said like, hey, would you come on and do this? I was like, yeah, like I'll do this. I need to do this more often because I've been so behind the scenes for so long. And I'm very much at the point now where I have the conviction and knowing that I know what I'm talking about because it is so based on evidence that I have done these things. And that's why I said before, I was like, I don't want to speak from advice where it's like, oh, I think you should do this. I'm just going to tell you what I've done and what's worked for me.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Because you can't say, oh, Chris, what I really think about blah, blah, blah. I'm like, fantastic. That's your opinion. This is where I know there's worked for me and what I see happening in reality. And that's the case. I want to learn from absolutely everybody, but I can speak with conviction because it's coming from evidence at the end of the day. And I think there is, to the point that I bring that up, there is also got to be humility in it as well. So when you go to a mentor, shut the fuck up. Keep your mouth shut and listen and take it on board. And be like, soak it in. I want to be a sponge and I want to absorb absolutely everything. But also I want to be able to question it. Like, I think one of the biggest issues an entrepreneur can face is doubt. But like in English, doubt, I think, can be really split into two different ways. There's skillful doubt and there's unskillful doubt. So you can say something to me and say, like, this is my truth. Like, this is the thing I believe in, right? And go, okay, unskillful doubt is me just constantly questioning about, no, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. No, I don't really think about that. Do you mean like it's this very immature, I'm trying to palm it away. But the problem with doubt done unskillfully is it takes you out of the game because it's like, it's the donkey that's stuck between hay and water, right? The donkey's standing there. He's like, well, I've got the hay. Do I eat the hay or do I drink the water? And he keeps going between these two options and just drops dead.
Yeah.
Right? So that's unskillful doubt. But skillful doubt is very much the case of like, I want to be curious and I want to say, oh, that's interesting. Like, let me learn more about that. Like, why is that? Like, why do you believe that? Like, how has that worked with you? Like really wanting to drill into it so that I can then be able to apply it and be able to move forward with it as well. So I just think it's interesting how we don't think about this doubt that comes through us when we're actually like listening to a podcast or a video or something along those lines. Like, what's my state of mind? Where's my attitude when I'm actually consuming this? Because then it can help me delineate, am I being unskillful right now or am I being skillful? Like, where am I actually coming from? Because when I have a mentor or a teacher or something great coming to me, I want to be able to use it as much as possible. But I also don't want to take it for gospel. And that I also think is too much of a problem because someone might listen. I don't want someone to listen to me and go, oh, that's exactly the way that I need to be able to do it. And they just like regurgitate and copy the exact same thing. That's not the case. So that's why I'm always trying to like pass through nuance and trying to peel things back and understanding, well, what are the principles about what this is? I mean, like, how does this work in like the bigger picture and why does this work? Because if I can understand it more on a principle level, I can then play with it. Do you know what I mean? And it's kind of like, I don't know about you, but I remember like being a kid and getting like a video game and never wanting to like read the manual or anything. I just wanted to like get in there and just like rip it apart and see what's going on and trying to find that out. There's a good and a bad level to it, but it's me wanting to understand the whys to it. Like, why is that the case? Like, I'll even take this to the point. Last night, I was reading about Confucius philosophy, right? And I was like, I want to know the good things, but I also want to know the critiques, right? And I was like I was very much, like when I really got into philosophy, I was really into like Buddhism and Stoicism. And I was very well read on both of it. But then I realized I didn't really understand the critiques. Like, what are the bad sides of it? Like, what are the parts that actually won't best serve me as well? And understanding from a Buddhist side of things, it can be missing some things as well. Like, and not just taking it for gospel and being able to then understand it better, which takes more work, but then you actually have so much more in your quiver to be able to use moving forward. Like, your toolbox is just so much bigger rather than thinking this hammer and everything's nails and I just need to start hammering it all.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. What would you say? What's next for you right now? So you sold your company. When was it? Last year or
last year?
Yeah. And that's obviously opened up a lot of new opportunities and things for you to do. So what's what do you want to spend the next 5-10 years on? What's the thing for you right now?
Beautiful question. Thank you for asking. Professionally, business-wise, what I do now is a partner model. So I partner behind the scenes of coaching and service businesses to be able to grow them behind the scenes. And there are 7 businesses now that I'm with, and I love it. I adore it. It's amazing. Like, I was sitting just the other day and I was like, all of my clients and partners, everyone's a millionaire. Like, that was the level that I'm now at. It was like, now I have like only millionaires that I work with. Like, this is cool. Like, this is a completely different level compared to what I was doing previously. Very much on a personal level, I'm wanting to better understand how to live a good life. Like, everything I share today is me just trying to figure my own shit out. Also, I've started writing a book, I think that I'll call The Art of Enough. So it's finding out like what is enough at the end of the day and understanding how to like understand really what that is, because I saw myself wanting to, okay, I want to earn 100 grand a year. I want to earn 100 grand a month. Now I want to do 1 million a month. And then it's like, where does that game stop? And I was like, okay, why am I doing that? And so it's very interesting now because selling the company, I hit this like financial freedom number. I was like, okay, this is amazing. And then now moving into this model of business, the income that I earn now, I'm like, this is amazing. And it was just before coming on this trip. I had a few partner projects coming together. I was like pretty busy, not stressed, but I was like, my wife could tell that I was distant. Like, I was physically here, but I wasn't like consciously present as well. And my wife, Lauren, said, she goes, we have enough. We don't need more. And I was like, whoa. And it really took me back because I was still in that like more. And so for me, it was a case of like, oh, that's interesting. Like, we don't need more money at all. Like, I genuinely believe you put another $10 million in my bank account, my life doesn't change.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, the toys might get a little bit fancier, but like,
would you have the confidence that it will just like, it will repeat? So everything is taken.
I think that's the interesting part now where it's like, I know with what I'm doing, it's working so well. And it's just, it feels so good and so right. So that stuff is like, oh, great. Like, money's just a game now where I'm getting to play in a different way, which feels really good.
Free, like you can do what you like, kind of like you can choose.
Totally. And I think that's cool. And I think that's the thing as well, is like, I think you've got to go through, you don't have to. Many is a case of having to go through a grind phase to then get to a level to understand that that's actually, it only serves you so far.
Yeah.
So for me, the way that I see it is, let's say there's the warrior archetype. Like, for me, there was the warrior archetype, whereas like I literally said to mentors, I just like, show me the direction, I'll run through walls and make that happen. Like, I will work harder than everyone. That only served me until a certain point. And the latest realization was actually that silence, that spaciousness, that stillness that was needed to go, oh, that time where I just sit back and relax and like let things percolate, is actually really needed now. Like that's when the magic really starts to happen. And so I had a friend give this little analogy that I think is really cool. So in like the levels of like entrepreneurship, let's say there's like you're an employee, and then you're a manager, and then let's say you're a business owner, then you're an entrepreneur, and then you can be an investor, and then you're a wizard. And he said, if you're working too hard, you're a shit wizard. And there's some real truth to that. It might not land for everyone when they first hear it, but I understand that people, when they're like, oh, that's really true, because that warrior archetype only takes you so far. And then you have to transition more to a wizard to be like, oh, hang on, like there's more to this case of it.
Yeah.
And like you need to let things just percolate through.
Yeah. I find that interesting. I've done a little bit of work on that archetype sort of thing, because I've gone through phases where you're just pounding your head against the wall, and you think more pounding will break the wall. Like,
yeah. Just walk around the wall, dude.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's very interesting. So yeah, man, Chris, I really, really appreciate your time. I know you're gonna train now. You kicked in your pre-workout and stuff.
Appreciate that.
But yeah, where can people find more about you? You talked about the book.
Yeah.
Kind of like coming along.
Easiest place to go now would just be the Christopher Dufey podcast. I give everything away for free, all the stuff. So I literally don't sell anything whatsoever. There's no buy buttons or anything like that. So the Christopher Dufey podcast is the only place to go to right now.
I appreciate you, Chris. Thank you so much.